Being stuck in a trauma bonded pattern is extremely painful, but there is something you can do about it. The problem with trauma bonding, it feels like chemistry and it feels like love, but really it is just your survival attachment wiring. This is the reason why it feels so difficult to let go and to walk away. And when you do, you feel deep pain. You feel the deepest pain of rejection, of abandonment, of longing for someone who is really someone you are chemically bonded with. So, what's happened is you've had sex, and that sex has released a lot of hormones. And so you've become bonded to that person, and they don't show you the consistency, the care and tenderness of your heart, and the connection that will allow you to actually receive this as a safe and secure connection. So you will probably experience hot and cold, them being loving and being with them, and you feel that tenderness and deep connection, and then maybe they'll be very distant and they or might spend weeks just ignoring you. When you can't walk away from that dynamic, despite the fact that it hurts, it tells us that this isn't love, although your mind will lead you to believe that it is. And what it tells us is that you need to come home to your and work with your inner child. We can work very closely with the child consciousness that is probably trying to resolve a subconscious ache and resolve a pattern that began very early on, where you had inconsistency or emotionally distant or unavailable parents or caregivers, where you internalized certain patternings that your child self developed to survive very painful disconnection and attachment wounding at a very early stage in your life. So, for example, if you were having to cope with a parent that was loving and then very, distant or emotionally unavailable, you learned to not really have that many needs. So you might have learned to be very helpful. This is just an example. What you've then equated is love and fear colliding. So what is familiar to you now is this painful situation where you're attracted to the same dynamic, which is familiar, but consciously you know that's not what you want. But it's the struggle to walk away. This is an initiation. You are a woman who has done inner work. You're conscious of the pattern. You want and yearn for divine sacred union. You yearn for the type of conscious partnership where you can have emotional intelligence, you can have reciprocity, you can have mutuality, and it's possible for you. But what is required for this to become into reality is that you have to make that choice and that decision to cut to the core and to heal those foundational patterns, those survival patterns that are stored in your nervous system. We need to recode your subconscious and transform your identity so that you no longer feel attracted to somebody who is unable to meet your needs. So that you don't feel like it's love when you're tolerating the lowest form of connection, where you're staying in a dynamic which is hurting you. Because when you break out of trauma bonds, when you break out of these dynamics, you become magnetic and open to healthy, loving connections that are a match for your true self and the true desires that you have. When we do this work, you begin to heal the part of you that keeps going back. You stop compromising. And you start to feel safe in your body when you choose yourself, because when you actually cut that cord and you decide, and you don't, it's not a mental decision, it is a physical nervous system pattern, as well as a subconscious and internalized belief and assumptions you have about yourself. When you make the decision to do this deep sacred work, everything changes.